On November 24, 2014, it's a quiet morning at Sony Pictures Entertainment in Los Angeles. Employees walk in with coffee, open their inboxes, and settle into a familiar routine. No one expects that, within minutes, that sense of normal will vanish, and the entire entertainment industry will be forced to confront a terrifying reality. A cyberattack can shake a giant faster than anyone thinks. Screens begin to flicker. Then, almost at once, a red skeletal figure appears on a black background across the company's computers, alongside a blunt declaration that they've been breached. A message follows, cold, precise, and confident. "We already warned you, and this is just the beginning. We've obtained all of your internal data. If you don't obey us, we'll release it to the world." In seconds, the warning stops feeling like text on a screen and starts feeling like a hand closing around the company's throat. Panic spreads through the building. Phones light up in the IT department. Employees try to log in and get locked out. Email won't open. Shared drives won't mount. Confidential files vanish. Machines begin shutting down, one after another, as if someone is pulling the power floor by floor. A Sony executive stands frozen in front of her monitor, staring at the skull splash page like a signature stamped onto the company's most sensitive systems. This isn't a movie plot. It's happening for real, and it's happening now. As technicians rush to assess the damage, the scale becomes impossible to ignore. According to the source script, roughly 3/4 of Sony's servers and computers are destroyed or rendered inoperable. Payroll is down. Email is wiped or locked behind encryption. Financial records are erased or unreachable. It isn't just a data breach, it's an operational collapse. A company might survive a leak, but when the core systems that keep it running are crippled at the same time, the organization starts to suffocate. The attackers call themselves the Guardians of Peace, a name that feels almost mocking as the crisis unfolds. And they don't stop at destroying systems. The attack immediately spills outward into a public spectacle. Thousands of sensitive files are leaked. Unreleased movies, internal documents, private emails. Then the pressure escalates again. Threats of violence against movie theaters unless Sony cancels the interview. A comedy mocking North Korea's leader. Under that pressure, Sony pulls the film from major theaters. That's when this becomes more than a corporate disaster. It becomes a chilling precedent. A cyberattack can create real-world censorship through fear and blackmail, without a single shot fired. And that's why the Sony incident is remembered as one of the most devastating corporate cyberattacks in history. Not only because it broke systems, but because it proved something darker. Stolen data can be turned into a weapon of coercion. Within weeks, U.S. intelligence officials publicly accuse North Korea of orchestrating the attack. It's an unprecedented moment, a cyber assault triggering a global confrontation. But for those who have watched North Korea closely, Sony isn't the beginning. It's the most visible reveal of something that has been operating in the shadows for years. A state-linked cyber force often referred to by names like Lazarus Group, and financial-focused units such as APT-38. What makes the story so unsettling is how counterintuitive it feels. North Korea is isolated and poor. Parts of the country struggle with basic infrastructure. And yet, in cyberspace, it has become a surprising superpower. The explanation isn't magic, it's strategy. According to the source material, North Korea began investing heavily in cyber warfare in the late 1990s. Its military intelligence apparatus built dedicated hacking units. One widely cited unit is Bureau 121, described as home to some of the country's top computer talent. These weren't underground activists. They were hand-picked operators, selected young, trained intensively at elite institutions, then elevated into a privileged class. In a country where many people struggle, these cyber operatives and their families receive special status and rewards, because the regime views cyber capability as power it can project cheaply and deniably. For Pyongyang, the logic is brutally practical. In conventional warfare, it can't match richer nations. But in cyberspace, a small team of elite hackers can strike across oceans instantly, disrupt systems, steal money, and cause political shockwaves without firing a shot. The source narrative describes a further evolution by the mid-2000s. Operators sent overseas to gain better internet access and an added layer of deniability, with intelligence reporting often pointing to activity based out of places like China. Over time, the fingerprints start to emerge. In 2009, waves of attacks hit South Korea's government and media networks, defacements, disruptions, and data destruction. One campaign referenced as Operation Troy involved malware used to spy on South Korean military networks. Security researchers began noticing recurring patterns. Those patterns were eventually grouped under a name: Lazarus Group, now widely treated as an umbrella label for North Korea's hacking operations. Then came a major escalation in 2013. On a dark day in March, networks at several South Korean banks and TV broadcasters suddenly crashed. ATMs froze. Broadcasts went silent. Tens of thousands of computers were knocked offline. The message wasn't merely, "We can break in." It was, "We can disrupt a modern economy." Sony in 2014 pushed that threat onto the world stage. This wasn't just espionage. It was sabotage and intimidation. The attackers didn't only steal data, they weaponized it to pressure a major studio into changing what it would release. That's why the Sony hack shocked governments and security experts. It showed cyber power being used openly for political coercion, a form of state-sponsored extortion delivered through leaked secrets and fear. After Sony, Western agencies scrambled. Investigators examined malicious code and server logs, noting similarities to earlier incidents. The United States officially attributed responsibility to Pyongyang, citing evidence such as tools and network traces linked to North Korea. But as Sony struggled to recover, the attackers moved on, and the next phase was driven by something even simpler than politics: money. February 2016, Dhaka, Bangladesh. Bangladesh Bank's headquarters is quiet on a Friday night. Most staff have gone home for the weekend. But inside the network, unseen intruders have been lurking for weeks. Watching, mapping, preparing. Then they launch their endgame. At the New York Federal Reserve, where Bangladesh Bank holds an account, urgent payment requests arrive through the SWIFT network. The messages bear valid codes and instruct the Fed to send nearly $1 billion from Bangladesh's reserves to accounts in the Philippines, Sri Lanka, and beyond. If it had fully succeeded, it would have been one of the largest bank thefts in history, pulled off not with guns or vaults, but with digital messages moving through a trusted global system. A small detail becomes the hinge between catastrophe and disaster. A printer that automatically recorded SWIFT transactions suddenly stops working. Staff later learn it wasn't an accident. It delayed discovery and kept alarms quiet while the weekend passed. Some transfers were stopped. One flagged due to a typo that raised suspicion, but not all. By the time the scheme was uncovered, $81 million had vanished. The money moved into casinos and accounts in the Philippines. Then the trail went cold. Investigators later found technical fingerprints and methods consistent with Lazarus-linked operations, turning the heist into a chilling symbol: a bank robbery with signs of state sponsorship. This is the pivot the source story emphasizes. North Korea discovered that hacking could directly fund the regime. After Bangladesh, campaigns targeting banks across multiple countries accelerated, often aiming to siphon tens of millions at a time. At the same time, cryptocurrency theft became an even more attractive pipeline: fast, global, and difficult to trace. How do they keep doing it? The source narrative describes a repeatable playbook. It often begins with something mundane: a deceptive email crafted to look routine, an invoice, a job application, an urgent security update. One careless click gives the attackers a foothold. Once inside, they move quietly, sometimes for days or weeks, mapping systems, escalating privileges, and locating the most valuable targets. They install custom malware, create backdoors for persistence, and when it's time to steal or destroy, they work to conceal the trail. Files can be encrypted and exfiltrated in small chunks. Crypto can be split into thousands of transactions, routed through multiple wallets and services designed to obscure origins. Connections are bounced through servers in multiple countries to confuse attribution. And yet, over time, habits become signatures, recurring coding patterns, infrastructure reuse, and operational quirks that let analysts link incidents together. The consequences are not confined to balance sheets. Sony suffered enormous financial losses and reputational damage, but the deeper shock was cultural. The entertainment industry learned that a dictator's displeasure could become a digital sword hanging over free expression. The bank heists triggered alarms across global finance, forcing changes in procedures and deeper international cooperation. Then, in 2017, the chaos scaled again with WannaCry, a ransomware outbreak that locked computers across more than 150 countries, disrupting hospitals, businesses, and critical services. In the UK, hospital systems were hit so hard that surgeries were cancelled. The lesson was brutal. When cyber weapons spread, the damage isn't just economic, it can become human. And the cryptocurrency thefts added another layer of unease. In cases referenced in the source material, hundreds of millions of dollars disappeared from exchanges or crypto-linked networks. Experts have argued that stolen crypto has helped fund North Korea's ambitions, meaning digital theft can translate into real-world capability. A global response followed. Cybersecurity agencies, law enforcement, and private companies collaborated more than ever. The U.S. Department of Justice issued indictments naming alleged members of Lazarus-linked operations. Governments imposed sanctions. Banks and exchanges were urged to tighten monitoring so stolen funds could be flagged or seized. Yet the core operators remain largely out of reach behind North Korea's borders. And if cyber operations have become a financial lifeline and a tool of statecraft, the incentive to stop is weak. In the end, the story forces an unsettling truth into the open. The nature of warfare and crime has changed. A country that struggles to keep its own lights on can still black out someone else's systems. A small economy can steal millions from the world's biggest institutions. A regime that might lose a conventional battle can still wreak havoc globally through the internet, at the speed of light from unseen perpetrators. And North Korea is not the only player watching. Dozens of countries now maintain cyber units. Rivalries that once played out with tanks and jets are expanding into code and networks. Cyber warfare has become a new equalizer, allowing smaller actors to hit far above their weight. But that raises questions the world still cannot clearly answer. What counts as an act of war in cyberspace? Is it stealing money? Stealing secrets? Shutting down hospitals or a power grid? The rules are blurred and the consequences are real. As the story closes, one image returns. That quiet morning, the coffee, the normal workday, then the screens turning black, and the red skull appearing like a stamp of control. Because the most frightening part isn't that the attackers showed up. It's the possibility that they had been there for weeks, unseen, patient, waiting for the exact moment to strike. The rules have already changed. The only question left is whether we're ready for what comes next.